I think the way ideas for episodes happen is that in two ways. Writers come up with the ideas individually and then throw them into the room, and people decide whether or not they want to do it. And I guess, on MASH it came out of research, but I don't ever remember a bunch of people sitting around in a room
No.
given the task, because there would be so much dead time.
Yeah.
Given the task of let's come up with some ideas now. That's, there's a lot of sitting there staring at walls that goes into coming up with
Typically
ideas.
on a series, if you're doing 24 or 26, I mean, initially, way back, they did 39 shows a season, which seems like a huge amount today. But even with 24 or 22, to get through a season, it's really, by the end, you're down to, you have no stories left, and you're just scrambling to get the show shot and written. Burt Metcalf, during his years there, and I don't know if Larry did this during his reign, but we would start in the pre-production period and only do stories. And many of them were from the research. So Burt had a pretty good idea of at least the notions for a lot of stories, and we would sit there and work those out, the whole staff, scene by scene, and write the outlines. And then when we'd finish one outline, we'd avoid the temptation to start writing it and go to the next one. So when they started shooting, when production started, there was like a pile of maybe 10, 12 stories that were pretty much locked in place, because this was a one-camera show, so they could actually shoot them faster than a week. So the pressure was greater. That train coming down the tracks was always gaining speed on us.
Did stories ever come from the research, or was research there to enhance stories?
Stories often came right out of the research.
They were there to trigger stories, I would put it. You'd see, well, an example of one was an officer who had been there relating on the phone to either Gene, I think Gene Reynolds was the one who initially always was sort of making note of the stories, and relating a whole incident about some kind of weird surgical operation they had to perform. And in the course of it, he just happened to throw in a fact unrelated to the operation, but happened to mention it came at a time that he remembered where they just, out of the blue, got a shipment of eggs, something they hadn't been able to eat for months. So as it happened, that became the arrival of eggs became what became an A or B story in an episode that we did, totally unrelated to the surgery.
Yeah, but there were times. I mean, there was
Yeah.
there was one we did about there had been an offer by, I guess, the United States government to any pilot from
Yeah.
North Korea who would land their jet in South Korea.
This was a story we discovered
Yeah.
in the Almanac
Yeah.
of 1953.
And Jeff Tambor ended up being a PR guy in that episode.
The Army was actually hiring a public relations person to sell the war because they were losing interest in it back at home. So they offered a reward to any North Korean pilot who would
fly a plane into
who would just give himself up. And we invented a story where a pilot crash lands his plane, and they were giving him a portable AM, FM radio and a new suit. And as Elias says, Jeffrey Tambor played the part.